The aroma of vanilla and cinnamon swirled around me. A comforting embrace in the quiet solitude of my bakery. Velvet crumbs. 2 years. 2 years since my heart had shattered into a million pieces, the remnants scattered on the floor like so much spilled sugar. He wasn't worth the tears, the sleepless nights, the whispers of what if that still haunted me. Work became my sanctuary. Each perfectly frosted cupcake, each flaky croissant a testament to my resilience. My hands moved with practiced ease, kneading dough, piping delicate frosting roses, the rhythmic clatter of the kitchen my only companion. Velvet Crumbs was more than just a bakery. It was my haven, my fresh start, my way of proving to myself, and to him, that I was stronger, braver, more resilient than he ever gave me credit for. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but with each passing day, it dulled, replaced by the sweet satisfaction of creation.
The bell above the door chimed, a jarring interruption to my thoughts. A quick glance at the clock told me it was almost closing time.
The bakery was quiet, the last of the day's customers gone, leaving behind the comforting scent of freshly baked bread and the soft glow of the setting sun filtering through the window. I was wiping down the counter, lost in thought, when a flicker of movement outside caught my eye. A tall figure, shrouded in the shadows across the street, seemed to be watching the bakery. I paused, my breath catching in my throat, but the figure was gone, swallowed by the deepening twilight. It wasn't the first time I'd noticed someone watching the bakery. Over the past few weeks, I'd caught glimpses of a dark car parked down the street, its occupant hidden from view. I tried to brush it off as paranoia. The city was full of strangers after all. But a cold knot of unease tightened in my stomach. My gut told me something wasn't right.
My phone buzzed. Angela's name flashing across the screen.
You're working late again.
Come on, Elena, even master bakers need a night off.
Angela, my rock, my confidant, the sister I never had. She was the only one who knew the true extent of the pain my ex had caused, the only one who had seen the shattered pieces of my heart.
I'll be home soon, just finishing up.
As I hung up the phone, I glanced back at the window, half expecting to see the shadowy figure again. The street was empty, but the feeling of unease lingered, a bitter aftertaste to the sweet aroma of the bakery.
The next morning, the bakery buzzed with more than just the usual breakfast rush. Local news played on a small TV in the corner, my face plastered across the screen, alongside images of my award-winning red velvet cupcakes. The Best of the Borough Award. A bittersweet victory, a reminder of the dreams I was building, the life I was piecing back together. The attention was flattering, overwhelming even. Regulars I barely knew congratulated me, their smiles genuine, their praise warming me from the inside out. My creation, my little haven, was finally getting the recognition it deserved. But with the accolades came a renewed sense of unease. The bakery was no longer my quiet sanctuary. It was now a local treasure, its doors open to everyone.
Among the well-wishers, a new face stood out. Tall, with eyes the color of warm honey, and a smile that could charm the frosting off a cupcake, he exuded an air of quiet confidence, a stark contrast to the nervous energy buzzing around him. He introduced himself as Damien, his voice smooth and deep like melted chocolate.
Your red velvet cupcakes are legendary. I had to see for myself if they lived up to their hype.
Damien became a regular fixture at Velvet Crumbs, his daily visits a bright spot in the rhythm of my day. He'd linger at the counter, sipping his coffee, our conversations flowing easily from lighthearted banter to deeper discussions about life, dreams, and the healing power of a perfectly baked pastry. There was something about him, an aura of mystery and charm that both intrigued and unnerved me. He never spoke about his past, his life outside the bakery a carefully guarded secret. And yet, his presence was comforting, his laughter a balm to the lingering ache in my heart. I found myself looking forward to his visits, my pulse quickening whenever the bell above the door chimed, hoping it would be him. It was a dangerous game I was playing, letting down my guard, welcoming this enigmatic stranger into my life.
I brushed off her concerns, clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, Damien was the exception, the calm after the storm that had been my life. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. Could Angela be right? Was there more to Damien than met the eye? S4. Media Group. Woman standing by a river, looking thoughtful. Woman walking down a quiet street, deep in thought. Stock, distribute equally. He's too good to be true. No social media, no online presence. It's like he doesn't exist.
The rain hammered against the bakery windows, a relentless torrent that mirrored the turmoil brewing inside me. It was a Tuesday, typically slow, but the downpour had kept even the most dedicated pastry enthusiast at bay.
I was about to call it a day. The aroma of unsold croissants a poignant reminder of the quiet disappointment that was becoming all too familiar when the bell above the door chimed, a discordant note in the symphony of rain.
He stood there, framed in the doorway, a figure of unexpected elegance amidst the dreary backdrop of the storm. Water dripped from his trench coat, pooling on the floor around his polished shoes. But he seemed unfazed, his gaze sweeping over the display case with a flicker of interest.
Forgive the intrusion, I was caught in the downpour, and the sight of your bakery was a welcome refuge.
He was tall, with broad shoulders that strained against the fabric of his coat, and his dark hair, now slightly damp, curled enticingly at his collar. But it was his eyes that held me captive. A warm, honey brown flecked with gold that seemed to see right through me, into the deepest recesses of my soul. My heart, so recently shattered, skipped a beat, an unfamiliar flutter in my chest.
Welcome to Velvet Crumbs. What can I tempt you with?
He smiled then, a slow, disarming curve of his lips that lit up his entire face.
I'm told your red velvet cupcakes are not to be missed, and after a day like this I find myself in need of something sweet.
His voice was laced with amusement, a hint of something deeper, something that sent a blush creeping up my neck. I busied myself, arranging the remaining cupcakes on a plate with practiced precision, acutely aware of his gaze following my every move. My hands trembled slightly as I placed the plate on the counter before him, the scent of cream cheese frosting mingling with the subtle musk of his cologne.
Coffee, or perhaps some tea?
He shook his head, his eyes still holding mine.
Just the cupcake will do, and perhaps some company.
The question hung in the air between us, charged with an unspoken intimacy that both excited and terrified me. I hesitated, my carefully constructed walls threatening to crumble under the weight of his gaze. It had been so long since I'd allowed myself to even consider the possibility of letting someone in, of risking my heart again.
I'm about to close up, but you're welcome to stay until then.
It wasn't exactly the smoothest response, but it was the best I could manage with my heart doing somersaults in my chest. He seemed unfazed by my awkwardness, a hint of amusement flickering in his eyes.
I wouldn't want to keep you, but perhaps I could convince you to join me for a cup of coffee as a fellow insomniac seeking solace from the storm.
He gestured towards the empty table by the window, the rain still lashing against the glass. His words struck a chord within me. Insomnia had become a constant companion in the wake of my heartbreak. The quiet hours before dawn filled with memories I couldn't escape. And the idea of sharing a pot of coffee, a stolen moment of peace amidst the storm, with this intriguing stranger, it was tempting to say the least.
Coffee it is, I found myself saying, the words escaping my lips before I could overthink them.
He smiled again, that heart-stopping smile that made my insides melt, and I knew I was already in over my head.
As I prepared the coffee, our conversation flowed effortlessly, a mixture of light-hearted banter and surprisingly deep insights.
He spoke about his love of art, his passion for photography, his fascination with the stories etched into the faces of strangers.
He listened intently as I spoke about the bakery, my dreams, my fears, my lingering heartache.
It was as if he had this uncanny ability to draw me out, to make me feel seen and heard in a way I hadn't in a very long time. Yet, despite the easy camaraderie, a part of me remained wary.
Angela's words echoed in my mind, reminding me of the dangers of letting down my guard too quickly.
He was charming, undeniably so, but there was an air of mystery about him, a carefully constructed wall that he kept firmly in place.
He never spoke about his past, his family, or his life outside our shared moments in the bakery.
And in the age of social media, his lack of an online presence was both intriguing and unsettling. As the rain finally began to subside, casting long dancing shadows across the bakery floor, he reached across the table, his fingers brushing against mine.
The contact was electric, sending a jolt straight to my heart.
I should let you get some rest, he said, his voice a low murmur. Thank you for the coffee, Eleanor, and the company.
I found myself reluctant for him to leave, the silence that descended upon the bakery in his absence feeling heavy, oppressive. It was my pleasure, Damien, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Come back any time.
The words hung in the air between us, an unspoken invitation, a promise of more stolen moments to come. He smiled then, that devastating smile that made my knees weak, and my heart, so recently guarded, dared to hope.
I believe I just might do that, he said, his gaze holding mine with an intensity that left me breathless.
And as he turned to leave, the scent of rain and something distinctly masculine lingering in his wake, I knew that my life, so carefully rebuilt from the ashes of heartbreak, was about to change forever. The weeks that followed Damien's first visit to Velvet Crumbs were a blur of stolen glances, lingering touches, and late-night conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning.
He became a fixture in my life, his presence as comforting and familiar as the scent of warm vanilla and cinnamon that permeated the bakery.
We fell into a comfortable routine, our days punctuated by his morning visits, the exchange of a red velvet cupcake for a smile that could light up the darkest corners of my heart.
As the days turned into weeks, our conversations deepened, venturing beyond the safety of casual banter into the realm of shared dreams, hidden vulnerabilities, and the lingering pain of past heartbreaks.
He spoke of his late fiancée, a talented artist whose life had been tragically cut short, his voice thick with unshed tears as he described her infectious laughter and her unwavering belief in his dreams.
I listened with a mixture of empathy and a pang of something akin to jealousy, wishing I could erase the pain in his eyes, replace it with the joy that he so clearly deserved.
Our relationship blossomed beyond the confines of Velvet Crumbs, spilling over into candlelit dinners, impromptu picnics in the park, and late-night walks along the moonlit riverbank.
Damien was a master at creating unforgettable moments, each encounter a feast for the senses, a symphony of sights, sounds, and stolen kisses that left me breathless.
He introduced me to the hidden gems of the city, cozy jazz clubs with velvet curtains and dim lighting, art galleries showcasing the works of up-and-coming artists, and secret gardens tucked away from the hustle and bustle of city life.
He had an uncanny ability to anticipate my every desire, surprising me with bouquets of my favorite lilies, first editions of my beloved classic novels, and hand-picked selections of vintage vinyl that filled my apartment with the sounds of my youth.
For the first time since my heartbreak, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I had found something real, something lasting.
Damien had chipped away at the walls I had so carefully erected around my heart, revealing the vulnerable woman beneath, the woman who yearned to love and be loved in return.
Despite the undeniable connection between us, a nagging voice at the back of my mind, fueled by Angela's persistent skepticism, whispered warnings that I couldn't ignore.
Damien was a man of mystery, his past shrouded in shadows, his present a carefully curated performance that left no room for doubt or scrutiny.
He never spoke about his family, his childhood, or the years that had led him to my doorstep.
Attempts to delve deeper into his past were met with vague responses, carefully crafted deflections that left me feeling more confused than ever.
His lack of a digital footprint, a void in the vast expanse of the internet, was both intriguing and unsettling.
He's hiding something, Elena, Angela insisted, her voice a mixture of concern and frustration. No one is that much of a ghost in this day and age. You need to be careful. Don't let your heart blind you to the truth.
Her words stung, but I couldn't deny the truth in them. A part of me, the rational, logical part that I had suppressed beneath a tide of desire, knew that she was right. But another part of me, the part that craved the warmth of his touch, the comfort of his presence, refused to believe that he could be anything other than the man he presented to the world.
Let's get away, Damien suggested one Friday evening, his voice a low murmur in the dimly lit corner of my favorite wine bar. Just the two of us.
I hesitated, torn between my desire to spend every waking moment with him and the nagging voice in my head that urged caution.
Leave everything to me, he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Consider it a surprise.
The cabin was everything I'd ever dreamed of, a rustic retreat nestled amidst towering pines. We spent our days hiking, our hands intertwined, our laughter echoing through the trees.
It was on our last night at the cabin, as we were packing our bags, that I stumbled upon something that shattered the idyllic facade. My heart lurched as I read the headline, "High-End Homes Burgled, Jewelry and Art Missing."
The newspaper article trembled in my hand, the weight of its words crushing me. Damien, my charming, enigmatic Damien, a thief? A master manipulator who preyed on vulnerable women?
Fear, cold and sharp, cut through the warmth of my love for him. Don't let him know you suspect anything. Not yet.
I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door behind me.
Elena, is everything all right?
I need your help, I whispered. It's Damien. I think he might be dangerous.
I'm on my way. Don't you dare do anything stupid, Elena.
The drive back to the city was a blur of anxiety and dread.
Back in my apartment, the familiar surroundings did little to ease my unease.
It was then, as I was watering my plants, that I noticed it. A miniature camera, expertly hidden amidst the lush greenery.
Damien hadn't brought me to the mountains for a romantic getaway. He had brought me there to distract me.
I called Angela, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger.
Don't panic, Angela said. I'm calling Detective Reed. He'll know what to do.
Detective Mason Reed. A gruff, no-nonsense detective who had helped me navigate the legal aftermath of my previous relationship.
As I waited for Angela and Detective Reed to arrive, a plan began to form in my mind.
He's good, Detective Reed admitted. A real pro.
He's not going to get away with anything, I said, my voice steady, resolute.
Detective Reed raised an eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity crossing his weathered features.
Let's just say, I said, my eyes twinkling with a newfound sense of power, that revenge is a dish best served with a side of red velvet. The bakery, usually my haven, felt more like a gilded cage.
Detective Reed had advised Elena to play the role of the unsuspecting victim, to let Damien believe he had outsmarted her until the very end.
The guilt gnawed at me, a bitter aftertaste to the sweet aroma of baking. My nights were haunted by nightmares, a kaleidoscope of Damien's face, morphing from charming suitor to cold-hearted criminal.
The plan, a collaborative effort between Angela, Detective Reed, and Elena, was audacious, risky, bordering on reckless.
Damien had underestimated me, had mistaken my kindness for weakness.
Elena played her part flawlessly, the heartbroken baker grateful for Damien's love and support.
Our final act, a surprise romantic dinner at the bakery after hours, was a masterpiece of deception.
You're too good for this world, Elena, too good for what's coming.
He leaned in, his lips brushing against hers, and for a fleeting moment, Elena saw a flicker of something real in his eyes.
The vial of liquid glinted in the dim light, its contents unknown but undoubtedly sinister.
The deafening crash of the bakery door splintering into 1,000 pieces, the roar of heavily armed officers swarming the room. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy.
I threw myself into my work, pouring my heart and soul into every batch of cupcakes, every loaf of bread.
Angela, my rock, my confidant, watched me with a mixture of pride and concern.
Elena, you're doing amazing. I can see the strength in you growing every day.
A week after Damien's arrest, Angela stopped by the bakery, her brow furrowed with concern.
You've been working too hard. Take a break, Elena.
I just need to finish this last batch of cupcakes. Then I'm all yours.
Damien had thought he was playing me, but in the end I had played him better. The game, it seemed, had been reset.
The bakery, usually bustling with life and laughter, felt strangely empty. My regulars, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and curiosity, tiptoed around me, their usual light-hearted banter replaced with hushed whispers and sympathetic glances. They meant well, I knew, but their concern felt suffocating, a constant reminder of the ordeal I had endured, the ordeal I was still trying to process. I had brushed off his concerns, assuring him that I was safe, surrounded by the sweet aroma of my creations, protected by the unwavering support of my community. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted, a chilling reminder that the game, perhaps, was not yet over. He's dangerous, Elena. Don't underestimate him. Even in custody, he can reach you. The silence in the bakery was deafening. Not the comforting, familiar silence of a baker at work, surrounded by the warm scent of yeast and sugar. No, this silence was different. Heavy, suffocating. The echoes of Damien's arrest still reverberated around me, the sharp clatter of boots on the tile floor, the shouting, the shattering of glass. My senses, usually soothed by the familiar rhythms of the bakery, were on high alert. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of paper, A phantom echo of that night. Sleep, once a welcome escape from the day's labors, had become my tormentor. My dreams, once filled with the sweet scent of vanilla and the delicate swirl of frosting, were now haunted by Damien's face. His eyes, once warm and inviting, now cold and calculating, staring at me from the shadows. I would wake in a cold sweat, the weight of his betrayal heavy on my chest, the echo of his lies ringing in my ears. My world, once painted in the soft hues of buttercream and rosewater, had taken on a harsher, more cynical edge. Every man who walked through the bakery door, every lingering glance, every seemingly innocent compliment, was met with suspicion, my heart a tightly wound knot of apprehension. I hated this new version of myself, this guarded, distrustful woman I had become. But I didn't know how to turn back, how to reclaim the innocence that Damien had so ruthlessly stolen. The aroma of baking, once a source of comfort and joy, now carried a faint metallic tang, a visceral reminder of the fear that had seeped into every aspect of my life. The rhythmic clatter of the KitchenAid mixer, once a soothing symphony, now grated on my nerves, each whir and pulse a jarring echo of my racing heartbeat. I tried to lose myself in my work, to find solace in the familiar motions of kneading dough and frosting cakes. But the joy, the pure, unadulterated joy that had once fueled my passion was gone, replaced by a dull ache of emptiness.
Angela, bless her soul, did her best to pull me back from the brink. She would arrive at the bakery armed with bags of my favorite takeout and bottles of equally comforting wine. Her presence a welcome distraction from the oppressive silence of my own thoughts.
She listened patiently as I recounted the events of the past weeks, her brow furrowed with concern, her hand reaching out to squeeze mine whenever my voice trembled with unshed tears.
You're safe now, he can't hurt you anymore.
But her words rang hollow. For deep down, I knew that the wounds Damien had inflicted ran deeper than any physical harm he could have inflicted. He had shattered my trust, my faith in my own judgment, leaving me adrift in a sea of doubt and self-recrimination. The weight of what I knew, what I had chosen to keep hidden, pressed down on me like a physical burden. The police, the media, the community, they all saw me as the victim, the innocent baker who had helped bring down a dangerous criminal. And while that narrative was partially true, it was also a lie. A carefully constructed facade that hid the full extent of my involvement, the choices I'd made, the risks I'd taken. The truth, like the intricate sugar flowers I meticulously crafted, was a delicate, multi-layered thing. Yes, Damien had deceived me, had manipulated me, had used my affection for his own nefarious purposes. But I had played my part, had willingly stepped into the web he had woven, seduced by his charm, blinded by my own desire for connection. I had seen the red flags, had felt the prickle of unease, had registered Angela's warnings. But I had ignored them all, choosing instead to believe in the fairy tale he had so expertly crafted. And in doing so, I had become complicit in my own deception, had allowed myself to be used, to be played. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, but swallow it I did, washing it down with gulps of lukewarm coffee and the bitter tang of regret. I had made mistakes, had allowed my heart to cloud my judgment, had been blinded by the allure of a love that was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion.
But amidst the wreckage of my broken heart and shattered illusions, a new resolve began to take root.
I had been played, yes, but I had also played my part.
I had learned from my mistakes, had emerged from the fire of betrayal stronger, wiser, more determined than ever before.
The bakery, once a symbol of my vulnerability, became my fortress, my platform, my declaration of independence.
I poured my heart and soul into my creations. Each cake, each cookie, a testament to my resilience. My refusal to be defined by the actions of a man who had underestimated me.
I renamed my red velvet cupcakes Red Velvet Triumph, a small act of defiance, a celebration of my survival.
The crimson swirl of cream cheese frosting, once a reminder of Damien's deception, became my battle scar, my badge of honor, a symbol of the woman I had become, a woman who refused to be a victim, a woman who had stared into the abyss and emerged, battered but unbroken, ready to face the world on her own terms. The game was over, but a new one had just begun. The rhythm of the bakery was my solace.
The gentle whir of the mixer, the satisfying thud of flour hitting the counter, the sweet yeasty aroma that permeated every corner. These were the sounds and smells of my victory.
Damien was gone, locked away, his web of deceit unraveled. The newspapers called me a hero, a brave woman who had helped bring down a dangerous criminal.
And while a part of me relished in the accolades, the outpouring of support from the community, another quieter part knew the truth.
I wasn't a hero.
I was a survivor.
The bakery, once a stage for Damien's manipulations, was now a testament to my resilience.
I'd poured my heartbreak, my anger, my newfound strength into every creation, transforming my pain into something beautiful, something delicious.
The Red Velvet Triumph cupcake, born from the ashes of betrayal, had become a bestseller. Its crimson swirl a symbol of my refusal to be broken. The fear that had haunted me in the days following Damien's arrest had receded, replaced by a quiet sense of determination.
I had stared into the abyss of my own vulnerability and emerged stronger, more aware of the complexities of the human heart, both its capacity for love and its potential for darkness.
I had trusted blindly, had allowed myself to be seduced by a charming facade, but I had learned from my mistakes.
The world I now understood was not a fairy tale.
It was a delicate dance between light and shadow, and I was determined to move through it with my eyes wide open. Weeks turned into months. The memory of Damien's betrayal, at first a sharp pain, started to dull, like a missing arm you can still feel. It popped up when I least expected it, in the quiet before sleep, in the way I looked at strangers, in the sudden tightness in my chest when a man's stare lasted a little too long. Elena Rivera. I buried myself in work. The bakery became my safe place, my way to make things right. The long hours, the rhythm of baking, the sweet smell of success. These were my medicine, my way to take back my life, my story. But even as I built my little cake kingdom, a worry stuck with me, poking at the peace I built. The police found most of the stolen stuff, carefully listing every item Damien took. But some things were still gone, vanished. Detective Reed told me it was just a matter of time before they found everything. But I couldn't shake this feeling that something wasn't right. Gap 2S.
You're a ghost.
Angela said, her voice laced with concern as she surveyed my weary reflection in the bakery's gleaming display case. It was late, well past closing time, but Angela, ever the loyal friend, had insisted on stopping by, her brow furrowed with worry, her arms laden with bags of takeout and a bottle of my favorite red wine. Angela sighed, her shoulders slumping in defeat. S1. I'm working. What else am I supposed to do? She was right, of course. I had been a recluse, withdrawing into the familiar comfort of my bakery, pushing away anyone who dared to get too close. Their concern a painful reminder of the vulnerability I was so desperately trying to outrun. But Angela, with her unwavering loyalty and uncanny ability to see through my carefully constructed walls, was not one to be deterred. S4. Media group. Woman speaking to friend, woman looking serious, two women in conversation, one with concerned expression at stock at distribute _ equally. You're avoiding me. Avoiding everyone. Elena, you can't hide in this bakery forever.
Let's go for a walk, get some fresh air, clear your head.
I can't. I have to finish these orders.
Angela, bless her heart, didn't push. Instead, she busied herself setting out the takeout containers on one of the bakery's small tables, her movements a familiar comfort in the otherwise sterile environment. As she poured the wine, her back to me, I slipped into the back room, drawn by a force I couldn't quite explain. The safe, usually a symbol of security, of my hard-won independence, now seemed to pulse with an energy that made my skin prickle. I spun the dial, the familiar clicks echoing in the silence, my heart pounding in my chest. The heavy door swung open, revealing its contents. A stack of legal documents, a few cherished photographs, and a small velvet pouch. My fingers, as if guided by an unseen force, reached for the pouch, my breath catching in my throat as I recognized the familiar weight. Inside, nestled on a bed of soft, black velvet, lay a diamond necklace, its brilliance almost blinding in the dim light. It was the necklace Damien had given me, the one he had claimed was his grandmother's, a symbol of his love, his sincerity. The necklace the police had never found.
Elena?
Angela's voice, laced with concern, broke through the fog of my thoughts. I turned, the necklace still clutched in my hand, its cold, hard facets digging into my palm. Angela's eyes, wide with surprise, darted from the open safe to the necklace. her gaze finally settling on my face, her expression a mixture of confusion and dawning realization.
What's going on?
I think that I may have underestimated myself.
The game was far from over. In fact, it had just begun, and this time, I was playing for keeps. The bakery, my haven, my refuge was about to become something more, something bigger, something bolder. It was going to be the foundation of my empire. An empire built on flour, sugar, and the unwavering determination of a woman who refused to be underestimated. An empire ruled by the Queen of Red Velvet.